Good evening, everyone. I am Mike Payette. I'm the artistic director of Tarragon. It's a pleasure to be with you. Before y'all experience the wonder of Childish, created by Sunny Drake, you really are in for a treat, and I'm really, really thankful to have two excellent guests with us who have also worked on the show, as Heather has mentioned. I will give a brief introduction to them both, and I'll start with our wonderful director, Andrea Donaldson, who is no stranger to Tarragon Theatre. She has directed Within the Glass by Anna Chatterton, Sequence by Aaron Lacra, and Soliciting Temptation by Aaron Shields. And she was also the past associate artistic director, really the past associate artistic director under Richard Rose's tenure. Her other work includes the recent hit, Enormity, Girl, and the Earthquake in Her Lungs with Nightwood Theatre in association with Tarragon Theatre, as well as Mad Madge with Nightwood in association with Video Cabaret, and the international tour of The Queen and Me with the COC, Canadian Opera Company, Nightwood Theatre, Amplified Opera, and Theatre Gargantua. The list goes on and on and on. She's also the artistic director of Nightwood Theatre. So an upcoming project that she has, you must catch it, at Canadian Stage in February 2026, You Always by Aaron Shields. Please welcome Andrea Donaldson. And to her right is the formidable Jessica Greenberg, who is making her Tarragon debut with this production, which is a surprise, but welcome. You will have seen her work on and off the stage. Some of her work includes being the director of youth and community engagement at Studio 180 Theatre, where she runs the Studio 180 in-class program. She's worked extensively as an artist educator and actor with Canadian Stage, Theatre Passe Muraille, Crow's Theatre, Theatre New Brunswick, Citadel, Young People's Theatre, Manitoba Theatre for Young People, Project Humanity, Thousand Island Playhouse, and the list goes on for more than 20 years. She has also recently directed play readings of The Wait, which took place in this room, or was it back there?
And down there.
Down there in the rehearsal hall.
Yeah.
And was the artistic producer for In Her Voice at Witchwood Barnes. Upcoming, she is the youth and community engagement programming for the Christmas market, which is in rehearsals right now, which is
first preview tonight.
First preview, and you're here. You chose
us.
I'm here. Which is a collaboration with Studio 180, Be Current Theatre, as well as Crows. Please welcome Jessica Greenberg. So Jess, I'll start with you. Having been with Childish since really the inception, right? You are part of the Childish collective. You've been with the project at such an early stage of the project's life. Can you share some of the different ways or the many hats or the processes that you've explored in the creation of Childish?
Sure. So when Sunny Drake had the idea to create this show early on, we were personal friends. We'd never worked together, but he called me and said, I have this idea to make a verbatim play and interview children. He kind of told me a little bit about it. He's like, what do you think? Is that bananas? I was like, that sounds amazing. And he said, would you help me with this? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So the first few years was about generating the material that goes into the play that you're gonna see. So my job began just collecting those kids. I was a parent. I still am a parent, and at the time had kids like kind of that age, and was in community and had networks and the ability to just meet a lot of people and kind of generate the really broad, diverse range of children's voices that we were looking for. Kind of collecting those and just collaborating with Sunny throughout, just because this whole project has been an experiment from the start. At every stage, I think you would probably agree, like up until, in the rehearsal room, we're kind of like, we're doing something new. Yeah. How do we do this? I don't know, we'll figure it out. So having trusted collaborators, I think makes that really possible to be able to just ask those questions back and forth. So we were able to partner in that way and gather the children and adapt it as we went. Like you said, it was for many, many years, and we started kind of a more conventional one-on-one interview. It was like Sunny interviewing a child, and then sometimes you're like, oh, like it would be interesting to see the dynamic between kids, because that changes if it's just like one adult, one kid, versus like a couple kids together. What would that be like? And then what about large groups? So then I started running drama workshops, which is something I do in other areas of my professional life, and with a focus of, so they would be recorded, so generating material. So some of the voices that you hear in the play are from one-on-one interviews. Some you can probably kind of get a sense of the context of being generated in a group setting. So running those workshops, and then not to give away too much of what happens in the play, you kind of will go on the journey of creation, but young people were involved in the dramaturgy, in the creation of the script. So I was running those dramaturgy sessions too, getting our group of young collaborators who were dramaturgs and working with them to develop that process. But we're really developing each process as we went. And then one of the neat things about the project, again, that just happened organically, was we sort of established a rule for ourselves that you can't grow out of childish if you don't want to. You're allowed to leave, like you're not, but anyone can leave at any time. But if you want to stay, there will always be a place for you in the creation process. So the voices, to keep them children, stay till age 11 or 12. After that, they're not really children anymore in the same way. There's something else. They're teenagers, which is like a different lens on the world. But we wanted to make sure that once kids grew up into teenagers, they were still a part of the project. So up until this production, I've been collaborating with those teenagers, who some of them started as 7-year-old interviewees, and now they're moderating talkbacks, they're creating the artwork that you see in the lobby, they're generating ideas for like all kinds of stuff we do.
Yeah. There was a young collaborator who came to see one of the previews. I want to say it was the last preview, and I met her mom, and she just spoke so highly of the process that you and Sunny had built, and particularly yourself, in engaging her daughter from a very, very young age in the process. And you wrangled, or you brought together upwards of 40 young people, right, over the course of 9 years of development.
Yeah.
How do you choose which kids to speak to or to ask questions from?
Right. I mean, some of them were from people I know through. My kids went to a TDSB school that had a really strong sense of community and had just like a lot of really neat folks. So just knowing them, like you kind of get a sense of like, this might be a really neat kid and someone who would be interested in the project. It's really like kind of the opposite of an audition process typically in the arts, where, when we're bringing in, either interviewing designers or auditioning actors, you think like, this is the role we have. We're looking for someone to fit that pretty much. And like, I know what I want, I'm gonna, like, or a job, it doesn't even have to be in the arts, like a job interview. Like I know the job that I'm hiring for, and I'll see like, are you gonna be a good fit for that job? This is really a reverse process. Like anytime I meet with a child to gauge their interest, it's about, okay, we're meeting so that I can give you all the information that you need to know to make a decision, using our ethos of informed consent. And this is what the gig is, as far as I can tell. What questions do you have, and does this sound like something you want to do? So as long as they're like into it and enthusiastic, we've never turned away a child who wants to be a part of the project. And certain steps, like we do have to make some decisions, and it really, some of that comes down to just like enthusiasm and collaborative nature. It's and at the same time, it was really important that the voices on stage reflect our community. the diversity of our community with regard to all different lived experiences and identities. So that was really important. Geographic too, right? Being very aware of, I live in a certain place, and the school, like, it was really important to stretch beyond my personal circles. That would be insufficient. And that's just, through different people and spreading those webs as wide as possible.
You're like an octopus. You got your tentacles in so many different communities and so many voices. Andrea, I want to keep on the road of process. And I remember when you and I initially had spoken about, possibly bringing this, to life in Toronto. You had some awareness of the project, right? And so, for those of you that don't know, there were a few iterations or workshop productions or workshop stages that were public. There was a smaller iteration as part of SummerWorks a couple years back. During the pandemic, there was also a digital version, certainly not the fully realized version that you're going to see live tonight, but an objective that Sunny and Jessica had in what they wanted to achieve at that particular moment. And Andrea, did you see any of that work? I know you did, but which was the part that first introduced you to Childish, and what has the opportunity been to work on the piece and bringing it to Toronto?
Well, I'm going to wind it back even before childish. Because I met, when I was here at Tarragon as the Associate Artistic Director, Sunny came in and interviewed for the Urjo Correda Award. Right. And that's when I met him and just thought, here is a remarkable person doing really cool things. And so through that, I started following. He had a really huge solo work life that toured to dozens of 60 cities or something like that. And that was his bread and butter for his first kind of 10 years as an artist. And I just thought, wow, that's so cool. And then when I heard about Childish at SummerWorks, I thought, oh, that sounds like such a cool premise. I have a child who's now 17, but at the time was maybe 8. And I thought, that's cool. I used to make her come everywhere with me. Now she doesn't come to the theater a lot. That's another story. But anyway, I kind of fell in love with the premise of it. And I know, actually, Jess and I went to high school here in Toronto together, which is another cool thing. We've never worked together, though. Yeah. We've tried to, but this is our first time really working together. And so I knew Jess was part of the project, and then I watched a little bit of the web series and just thought it was so big-hearted and interesting and funny and sweet and touching. Like, it just felt like all of these really cool ingredients, and like Sunny is a very alternative theater maker, actually, or like his earlier work was. And so I thought, isn't that really cool? Those two things, children and alternative theater practices, are not synonymous. Like, they don't. Yeah. So that actually those two things coming together just sounded like two really opposite, interesting ingredients to come together. And my observation has been that the project, like Sunny and Jess, both of the integrity that's baked into the project around the connection with children and it's so honoring children at the center. More than, and I've written for children, I've directed works for children, I've been a child on stage when I used to act, but this project feels so sophisticated in how it's interacting and collaborating with children.
Do you think because it's working with young people, with children, but it is a piece for adult audiences. So when you speak of sophistication, does that have anything to do with the target audience? Does that have to do with the quality of the work that was culled from the young people? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. I don't think it's sophisticated because it's for an adult audience, but it is for an adult audience, and it's not it's something. There is actually a student matinee tomorrow for high school age students, which I'm really curious to hear about. I can't wait to hear what they think of this, with their proximity to both childhood and adulthood. For me, the sophistication lies in not treating a kid like someone who doesn't know stuff, who's, children are quite powerless in the world. So this is a project that really attempts to decenter adults and follow the energy and ideas of children versus saying this is how we're going to do things. It's kind of like that, like the disability justice notion of nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
That's really, it's just baked in that we couldn't make a show about kids without them being central to the making of it.
Yeah.
And that has become, that you'll see in the show tonight, that I think that also makes the show sophisticated. But I don't think it's because it's for an adult audience. But I think that what Jess and I are talking about is baked into the show. So you're getting some backstage stories, but also you'll see how it's integral to the piece as you're watching it, I think.
Absolutely. The word agency really comes to mind as you wonderfully took us through that journey, and continuing along that agency stream, I guess, for yourself, Jess, because you, especially in the creation process, were really creating the container in which to support and encourage their voices to really take light. What kind of exercises did you do? How did you, I've seen some examples of the past and young people just being, maybe a little bit shy or not wanting to, not wanting to speak out, not because they don't have a voice, but because they don't necessarily feel safe in the environment. How do you encourage that in the room? What exercises did you do?
What the foundation of everything we do, that we, from the very beginning, started with the foundation of a brave space, which is really central to our ethos. I believe that in making art and making theater, the more common notion of a safe space that I think is familiar to a lot of us is insufficient in theater making and art making, and in building that ensemble that and it can be a little bit of a semantic argument, but to me, safety connotes kind of being let off the hook a bit and being able to kind of sit back and not jump in a little bit. But we really emphasize courage and being brave. So we always start by creating guidelines for ourselves, and it's different with every group of kids. In every workshop we've done, there's going to be a different brave space agreement where we really talk about what do I need in order to feel brave in this work. If the ask of me is going to be to share my ideas, to listen to other people, and maybe listen to ideas that might be counter to some of my own beliefs or ideas, and to be able to coexist, what do I need from myself and from my fellow ensemble members in order to do that? So that's the basis from which we build everything. And then we would play games. Actually, Jeff, who is not here tonight, happened to be a part of some of those early processes too, because at the time he was working with night swimming, and he was an associate there at night swimming, who was really crucial to the dramaturgy and development of this show, of the play, all through the process, working with Brian Quirt. And so Jeff was a part of some of those early dramaturgy workshops, and he introduced me to one of my favorite games, Fortunately, Unfortunately, which is just like an improv-based story building game. So we would play things like that. We would just do embodied movement and get the young people to guide the professional adult actors. And then I think just kind of gently move into collaboration together. Everything was always multi-generational, but in order to keep everybody feeling brave, like they could do their bravest work, we would sometimes take time where Sunny would be with the director and adult actors, and I would be in a separate space with the young dramaturgs, and we'd kind of talk about and like practice how do we give feedback in a way where everyone feels brave, right? Because we also don't want to get into that situation. I think giving agency to kids and centering kids is not the same as just letting kids do whatever they want all the time. And I think we can sometimes confuse those, and it's really important. Like, there still need to be boundaries and limits, and kids actually crave those. Children thrive within a container, within boundaries, and it's not about just like, you just get to say what you want. You know, some of this comes up in the play a little bit. It's not like, making your voice heard is not necessarily licensed to be cruel. Like, that's not what this is about. So it's like practicing that. How do we give feedback in a brave space? So yeah, it was like a lot of that.
All things that we as adults could also use a little bit of from time to time, right? Yeah. So from workshopping, and thank you for mentioning Night Swimming as well, and Brian Quirt, because they were absolutely instrumental in the development of this piece, especially in those early stages. And so we've culminated the words, we've culminated drafts of the script. It has been workshopped, and now we go into rehearsals, and we have these young people's words being translated by adults, professional actors. And so talk us through, Andrea, the casting process. How did you find these 5 extraordinary actors that our folks will see?
Yeah. Well, I had a hunch, and Sonny had a lot of experience because there had been so many workshops and moments of it, had worked with so many actors that he loved and thought were really great at the task. But he was very kind of great about sharing what the task was with me, and from my read of the script, I think I kind of got it.
Yeah.
And in our early conversations, I kept feeling affirmed that, like, okay, I'm picking up the right breadcrumbs as a director. But yeah, I had a hunch that the actors that we needed were kind of the actors that were successful in TV. In the sense of being able to deliver text in a really naturalistic way. That was kind of an ingredient. I don't know if I actually said it that way, but if I had to kind of boil it down, that was a little piece of it. But very quickly, I kind of felt like the more we can embody a prototypical adult, and kind of like what you think an adult looks like when you're a kid, maybe. So like, it helped to find adults that could put on a suit and look like, oh yeah, they belong in a suit. Or adults who can behave a little bit more contained than a lot of actors, a lot of artists can do all sorts of things, but we happen to be curious, wondrous people. That's part of what our magic power is. And actually that sense of child, that like a natural sense of child wonder actually was not helpful for the casting of this. So we had to really push against the text. We had to push against the fact that this was a child that said this in their exact words, including their likes and ums and funny syntax or unusual word choices, and put that in the voice of an adult who could be a lawyer or a bank manager or a doctor or someone. So I started to think about kind of power and status, and status actually helped kind of thinking about some of the ways that we become confined as adults by our through our work, through this kind of adult-centered world that reinforces a little bit of more of a closed down way of being. Mm-hmm. And so in auditioning the actors, it was pretty, I had some hunches around some people. I pulled in a few wild cards, and then I'd be like, no, just as I thought. As soon as they start speaking the words of a child, they embody a child. They just can't even help themselves. Even if we say, do not act like a child, they immediately will, just because they can just tap into their inner 6-year-old so vividly.
Right.
So that was part of the thing. And then there's an important kind of magic alchemy around the dynamics between different actors. So I keep saying this actually each time I talk about casting. I find more and more my process involves casting one person, and once they've said yes, then going to the next person, because this person is kind of contingent on this person. And certainly, like Jess was talking about in terms of what kids we brought, or they brought in to be the 41 children that were giving the verbatim text for this play, it was really important that the 5 actors that we have on stage are also representative of those 41 voices. And of course, we can't have 41 identities in 4 or 5 bodies. But we kind of did our best to go, okay, we really want to make sure that we have a variety of ages, a variety of cultural backgrounds, a variety of, all of these things. So I think you'll see Toronto on that stage.
You will see Toronto on stage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And part of what I find part of the magic of this show, and just really this overall experience, and why it's programmed, beyond its pushing of artistic form or challenging the notion of what verbatim theater could look like, especially in our current zeitgeist, but it is the intergenerational content itself, or the meeting of different experiences or different generations really coming together. And that, I think, is absolutely celebrated in the cast. The cast isn't homogenous at all. And that's Toronto, that's Canada, that's so vibrant. So you'll absolutely experience that. You had mentioned of the likes and the ums, and I remember a patron had wrote me or spoke to me a couple of days ago, and was adamant that the actors were improving. They're like pretty sure they were improving, and I was like, I will fight you. I will take out the script and I will. It's like, where did you see that? But that just spoke to how easy they make it look. Really, and it's
so hard.
And it's so hard, right? It ends, So anyway, kudos.
That's cool.
Want to keep going on the verbatim theater topic. We don't talk about verbatim theater a whole lot, and it's been a hot minute since I think Tarragon has done verbatim theater or documentary theater on our stages. So Jess, can you share some of the unique experiences you've had in the creation stages of Childish alongside the child collaborators towards figuring out the verbatim nature of the script? What do you pick? You have hours and hours, you have weeks and weeks of material. Have there been elements that have been cut from one iteration to another? Have there been advances? What does it mean to bring it together?
Yeah, I will say I don't do the picking,
okay,
but I've been privy to the process, so I can speak to this a bit.
Absolutely.
And yes, a lot of material, and I can speak to like some moments, and it is revealed a little bit throughout the play, because in the play, as you'll see, it's Sunny sort of taking you through the journey of the creation of the work too, in this really cool way. But yeah, the picking also kind of happened in tandem with the interviews, because initially, like Sunny's first seed of the idea, which it's not a spoiler, like it's revealed in the first moments of the play, of like, this is kind of how I got this idea, and like we really started investigating love and relationships and dating, and like those were like the major themes, until the interviews, of course, as any conversation would branch out into different topics. And again, like back to the idea of it being really child-centered and not going with these adult expectations of this is what it's going to be. To Sunny's credit, he didn't just say like, I'm writing, this is what the play is going to be about, and I'm going to find the stuff that supports what I want to write about, right? Like he probably could have very easily done that, right? Kind of been like, I want to use these kids to forward some agenda I have to tell some story I already know about. And it's really the opposite. Like he was just completely open to whatever topics and ideas were sent our way through these interviews. And I think, and he speaks to this through the words of the play too. I think one of the big challenges was also coming up against like, what about when kids say things that we don't agree with or don't feel like we want to endorse. I know something that was important to me from the early stages that I was definitely encouraging in Sunny was to go to some of those darker places, and there's a more nuanced word for this, but like more places of like meanness or cruelty. Like children are not just like perfect angels, right? Like that instinct to be like, oh, love, they say these things and the wisdom, and we just have to learn from the children because everything they say is magical. Like, I'm a parent. Sometimes kids, like, no, like there's lots of stuff they say and do that are not models for society, so it felt like that an authentic experience, we necessarily had to include those pieces as well. A challenging part of the verbatim and working with kids, and as I mentioned, a rigorous consent process is integral to every step of the way, and part of that includes saying to kids, like, at any point you can say, I don't want that included. We did come up against moments with kids who in moments of vulnerability shared some things that you kind of go, oh, like, that's gold, right? Like, there's like some really
that's feeder juice. But not so much.
Exactly, really, and then after the fact, they kind of go, no, I don't feel, and having to honor that, right? It's like if you ask a question, you have to be willing to accept the answer, right? When we make that proposition of you are consenting to this, and at any time you can change your mind, which is vital. When they change their mind, you kind of go like, oh, but you gotta honor that.
And you find a different method or different pathway. Right?
I mean, there are so much material and so many voices, and for sure there would have been moments that would be resonating on that stage, but there are other moments to choose.
I want to continue along. Again, from the discussion around verbatim theater, and here in Childish we have Sunny is portrayed. Sunny, as interviewer, is a character. He is a character within the piece, played by awesome actor Asher Rose. And so in balancing verbatim text, so you, Andrea, you have the material, and then you have the intentions or interpretations of said material, or the instincts of the actor that also influence the text itself. How do you honor the, for lack of a better word, truth of the verbatim text with interpretation?
I'm going to answer that by talking about not this show.
Okay.
I think I've only directed one other verbatim piece, and that piece had a through line because it was about a family, and there were 4 family members in it. The playwright was actually anonymous, which was really interesting. It was called Grace by Jane Doe, because she didn't want to expose who her family was. In that case, the characters had one single through line. They were a person that started here and went through an experience, and they were the same person at the end of it. So in that sense, I didn't know those people, but I was taking the text, as I always do, and look for intention within it, and coaching that with the actors. In this case, I say that to offer the contrast to this piece, where each character is embodying 41 characters. So the task was actually really unusual in the rehearsal hall next door, because the actors had to be encouraged to abort a ton of technique that they bring to every play that they work on ever. So not only are they pushing against the words to say these words are from kids and I cannot sound like a kid, they also had to go, okay, I don't have a history. I'm not a character that I'm making up that has an identity, that has a name even. The characters don't have names. I don't have any relationships, and there's nothing that I'm hoping to achieve by experiencing this, which are all like the rules of what you do when you're directing a show or acting in it.
No circumstances, no objective, no nothing, no name.
No,
Yeah.
no. But what they did have was they did have to make sense of, from moment to moment, the words that they were given that were not, you know, from my understanding, Jess, you may know more, but like, it's not that when you see a full, you know, the first scene in Childish, for example, those aren't 4 consistent kids saying all of those things in a linear way. This is like truly like a mosaic that Sonny has gone, this sentence, this word, this phrase, this short argument that these 2 people had, and really, so the work that he's done he got his paycheck, he earned his paycheck, he's still a playwright. But that actually made it so that actually we had to kind of make all of these different rules of the game of kind of like, okay, when are we following an adult impulse or an adult intention, or when are we just actually following the kid intention? Like you'll see there's at least 2 moments in the piece where the adults do things that adults don't normally do, and they do them full force, with no shame, no social cost to behaving in a way that is unusual for adults, and they just go back to their business. There's several moments like this. And what happens is that I think the result for the audience, it's such a gift because we as adults, and we're all adults out here in the audience, and there's something a little bit liberating about it. Like, yes, as Jess said, these are not perfect angels who you know, whose every sentence should define how we behave in society. But there are lovely things that kids, because they're not as coached into how to behave, that will mean that friendships happen much more easily. That we can have a conflict and then repair quite swiftly. All of these things that as adults we're living in a world with all sorts of conflicts and ways of closing off from each other, but in some ways kids have a shorter line to some of these things that I think as adults we kind of wish we could experience a little bit more of.
And I suppose as a director as well, I'm assuming as a director as well, as much as Sonny has created those pathways or connected threads of material that is perhaps not connected, you are the detective finding that common journey in order for the actor to understand and to interpret as well.
Yes,
so
although I'll interject to say, in some ways, like within each scene, we kind of said, okay, like if your whole thing in this scene is like, I'm just gonna make something up, like I don't wanna make friends, I don't wanna talk about making friends, then that can be kind of your guy's thing. But in the next scene, your whole thing might be, all I wanna do is make friends. So in this world, that sense of contrast and contradiction is actually welcome in order to let the audience have a little spidey sense, just a little tingle of recognizing that each person is not a fixed person and that there are all of these voices. So I actually, it's in the writing as well that you'll see, if you're kind of paying attention, you'll see that certain identities, for example, will also in a later scene suggest opposing aspects to that identity that are incongruous. And that's important, and it was important for Sonny to do that in order for us to every now and then have a flash of, oh, this is not the same voice. These are other voices. There's a multiplicity of voices here. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to offer that.
No, that's way better. That was great. That was great. Jess, again, in terms of the collection of artists or collection of voices, we've talked about the intergenerational aspect. We've talked about the sort of cultural scope of the children that were interviewed, and of course those that are the adults that are on stage. You, outside of Childish, you know, your work with Studio 180, Hannah's Suitcase as well. Can you speak about, did anyone see Hannah's Suitcase? I loved Hannah's Suitcase. Can you speak about the importance, I guess, in today's time of forging those relationships of different identities or different ages coming together to tell a story?
it's so, I mean, I can only speak to my experience of kind of our culture, our society here in Canada, in Toronto, but I feel like we are very removed from robust, meaningful, intergenerational experiences, and every experience I've had where we've been able to establish those connections, it's always wonderful. I don't know why it doesn't happen more, because I've never had an experience where people go, no.
Yeah, right.
This was no more of that. Thank you very much. I mean, I do so much work with young people. Most of my work in teaching and artist educator work is with teenagers. For the most part, and some young adults. I had my first experience recently that I'm hoping to continue with much older adults and older adults within like memory units, and that was new to me, and it was one of the absolute best experiences of my life that I hope to continue doing. I just like faded away into that, memory. I'll come back. I think about, in terms of young people, that nobody asks young people how they see the world. This is like, I think, fundamental to why I think it's important. Is that in my experience being in classrooms, mostly high school classrooms, it is so rare that a young person is really asked, what's important to you? How do you see the world? What do you care about? I think it happens in drama classrooms sometimes, but anytime I go into a space and make that kind of my mission, I am flabbergasted by how surprised young people are to have that being asked of them. So I just think that needs to happen more. And I think arts education is magic. I think drama education is, I don't have another word for it, it's magic. And it's not about creating a next generation of artists. Like, don't do, like,
we're good.
Yeah, like, save yourselves. Please, like, why? Like, there's nothing more empowering and connecting than what we can build together in these drama spaces. I couldn't believe that more. Yeah, I couldn't believe that more than I do. And like, not about because now you're gonna go and make your own play. Like, I'm sure as artistic directors you don't need more people writing plays for you. There's lots of plays. I'm kidding.
I won't say that. No. But definitely, the cultivation of critical thinkers, of folks of young people who can engage in the world around them and be able to communicate with each other, to sort of map out the future that they, are dreaming of. It's, arts education is the sort of champion to bring our best version of ourselves out into the world, So thank you for the work that you do.
And see one another. Ultimately, like, anytime, I think it's like the self-reflection and the being able to be heard, but even more powerful than that is hearing young people I work with reflecting back how they see each other, which Brilliant. I think is really, Yeah.
I have one last question. But before that, if there's any questions or reflections from our guests here, yes.
Well, first, thank you so much for offering this pre-talk. This has been fascinating. Also, I love your sweater. I'm obsessed.
Thank you.
So
some people wear suits. Some people wear.
You're never going to be
sweaters.
cast in a production
I've
of
never done
Childish.
that.
You're
Never in
too
Childish.
whimsical.
I was very curious if any of the kids who participated have seen the show yet. You've got any feedback on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one, I don't think this spoils it, but there's one line in the play where one of the adults talks about how they love their books. And one of the preview performances, I saw a kid who looks like an adult but is actually just a 17-year-old kid who said, I worked on Childish when I was younger, and I'm the one who said, I love my books. And just seeing her kind of beam about that was just gives me shivers just
right?
thinking about that.
So much pride.
Yeah.
So did you? Yeah, that's a great example. Did you have one as well, Jess?
Yeah, a few of them had, and some of them who were a part of the process, like I said, have kind of graduated to being teen collaborators, so they're still working on this production in various capacities. So they've all seen the show and they love it. Like they love it. And for some of them, like they can identify lines, and some of them, like my own children, were their voices are somewhere embedded in the piece, and my 15-year-old has seen it a couple times, and she doesn't even know, like she doesn't even really remember, to be honest. Like she'll see and she'll be like, maybe, did I say that? Did I say that? Which I think also kind of speaks to that lovely kind of common experience, which I think is that's one of the things that I love about theater, is that people with like such completely very diverse ranges of experiences can attend a play and all find something of themselves up on that stage. I think that's one of the magical things about theater, so the kids kind of do that too. But they're really into it, and that's part of the thing about you don't age out of Childish, because we felt this like, oh, these kids want to keep doing this. We can't let them go. Even Eponine, who is one of the early interviews, and she's an adult now, and she lives in a different place, and she was in Niagara-on-the-Lake. She's in Ottawa. She's been connected the whole time doing media interviews. She's written the program note for the show, so they're in it. Like, yeah.
Do take a look at the program. There's a lovely note from Eponine Lee. Enjoy. Great question. Yes.
Were there any edits other than for length? And if there were, did you go, speaking to agency, did you go back to the kid and say, we need to change this, are you okay with that? Or
The piece is it's such a like a mosaic of their words and thoughts that I don't think there would be any child that would be like, my expectation is that what I said here will be put in this play. So though there was the consent of, can this be in the play, there wasn't a requirement to ask permission to take stuff out of the play.
Right. They don't have any kind of rights over final drafts, and that was all very clear too. That was important. Like part of the consent process was very clearly establishing what those parameters were. You don't get final approval on the script or anything of that. And that we were very upfront about that. Yeah.
And further, if your question is, say there's like a particular line that's, hi, my name is Michael, and I were to take the words, the words my name out, the integrity of the text will remain the same. But if there was like two sentences, maybe one of the sentences was pulled out, for instance. But it's not like words were shifted around within the same thought. Does that make sense? Didn't necessarily. Well, the context might have changed by virtue of what is before and after in relationship to others, but within the thought itself, it would remain the same.
Mm-hmm. Like it's not like fridge magnet poetry.
Yeah. That's a really great way of putting it. Andrea and Jess, what is last thought? what is a word or a moment from your time with Childish or the experience of Childish that you'd like to share to our friends this evening before they see your work?
Well, I'll put a question to you that you can think about during the play and after. Think about the space when you walk in the theater, and when you see the actors, look at what they're wearing, and think about why some of those choices were made.
Intriguing.
That's a hard one.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Can you ask it again?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a line, a moment, a thought of your experience with Childish that you'd like to share, or without any spoilers.
Like life advice.
Life advice. Sure.
Well, I mean, I've spoken a lot about like some of the serious foundations upon which we built our practice and honoring the experience of kids. And one that I haven't spoken about has also been fundamental to our practice is that there always have to be snacks. Whenever children are participating, there's catering.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, like another something that we could all bring into our lives. Like there's no reason why
I will channel that and look for. Oh no, I was just about to give something away. But the word that I will say is goldfish. The word I will say is goldfish. It will make sense. Folks, you are in for a really, really unique, special theatrical offering that I'm so thrilled that you are joining us this evening. The show is doing very well and selling out in some performances, limited availability in others. We hope that you enjoy, and of course, if you do, please do spread the word. But in the meantime, have a fantastic evening at the theater, and please thank Jessica Greenberg and Andrea Donaldson for being with us this evening.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Enjoy the show. It begins at 7:30.